The glowing embers of a fire pit can consume a legacy of disrespect in a matter of minutes. On the evening of my 65th birthday, I watched a piece of expensive leather burn until it turned to ash. That was the exact moment I realized that keeping the peace within a family should never require the sacrifice of personal dignity. My name is Martha Vance, and I am a widow who recently became a stranger in my own home. For months, I tolerated behavior that eroded my happiness until a simple backyard barbecue changed everything. My friends and neighbors gathered to celebrate my milestone birthday, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface of our family dynamics. My son Julian and his wife Cynthia had moved into my house a year earlier under the pretense of saving money for a down payment. Instead of saving, Cynthia spent lavishly and gradually took over every room, treating me like an unwanted guest. My dear friend Clara had baked a beautiful lemon cake from scratch to honor my special day. Cynthia arrived late, flaunting her expensive new handbag and ensuring everyone knew the steep price tag. When the time arrived to sing for my birthday, she chose that exact moment to squeeze past the dessert table. With a deliberate jerk of her elbow, she knocked my cake onto the stone patio and offered a hollow apology before walking away. A heavy silence fell over the yard as my guests stared at the ruined dessert splattered across the stone. I did not cry or raise my voice, but instead walked directly to the chair where Cynthia left her prized possession. I lifted the luxury purse and dropped it squarely into the hot coals of the fire pit without hesitation. The chemical smell of burning leather filled the air as Julian rushed toward me with a furious expression. He screamed that I was losing my mind and demanded that I pay for the destruction of the property. I looked at him calmly and told him to send a bill, but only after his wife explained her actions. The next morning brought a suffocating wave of tension when Julian demanded an apology and a large check in the kitchen. I quietly finished my coffee and went upstairs to clear the master bathroom of the endless luxury product Cynthia had scattered everywhere. I packed everything into cardboard boxes and immediately had a locksmith install heavy deadbolts on my doors. On Tuesday morning, Cynthia sat at the kitchen counter and demanded to know when breakfast would be ready for Julian. I informed her that I was a widow and not their maid, so they were now responsible for their own meals. She was horrified to discover the main refrigerator was empty because I moved my food to a bedroom fridge. Later that afternoon, my daughter Beatrice called from another state to lecture me about my behavior and demand a financial loan for her husband. She claimed that I had money to burn and needed to fix the family drama. I firmly told her that the bank of Mom was closed forever and disconnected the call. Immediately, the sudden financial demands prompted me to investigate the emergency checking account I shared with Julian for medical purposes. At the bank, the teller printed 6 months of statements revealing that $18,000 of my retirement funds had vanished. The money had been spent on upscale restaurants, day spas, and luxury boutiques under the direction of Cynthia. I immediately closed the shared account and transferred the remaining retirement funds into my private savings. An hour later, Julian called me in a panic from a restaurant because his card was declined during a business lunch. I told him that my medical safety net was not a luxury fund and suggested he wash dishes to pay. Days later, Cynthia attempted to reclaim dominance by hosting an unannounced dinner party for her friends using my vintage wine collection. I walked downstairs in my bathrobe, turned off the music system, and gathered the bottles from the table. I politely told her guests that the party was over or needed to move to the outdoor patio. Julian had also assumed total control of my personal sedan, using it daily to avoid paying for his own vehicle maintenance. On Sunday night, I used my spare key to drive the car to the garage of Clara a few blocks away. The next morning, I told a panicked Julian that he could navigate the city bus system. Beatrice arrived unannounced on Wednesday with her luggage, hoping to manipulate me into giving her a large inheritance advance. We sat near the cold fire pit where she accused me of tearing the family apart over a cake. I told her she could sleep in the guest room as a daughter, or find a hotel as a debt collector. The large guest bedroom had been aggressively transformed by Cynthia into a massive walk-in closet filled with clothing racks. While the family was away that weekend, I packed every garment into bags and moved them into the bedroom of Julian. I quickly converted the empty room into my private art studio and locked the door securely. The elimination of my free financial resources and household space caused the marriage of Julian to collapse under the pressure. Cynthia packed her suitcases and departed in a waiting vehicle, leaving Julian completely alone in his cluttered room. Beatrice also left the next morning when she realized that no money or alliances remained for her to exploit. Julian spent the next 2 weeks performing household chores and speaking in a pathetic voice to gain my sympathy. He offered a tearful apology and blamed his former wife entirely for his poor decisions. I accepted his apology, but informed him that he had exactly 2 months to find an apartment and leave my home permanently. After Julian moved his final boxes away, I lit the fire pit and enjoyed a quiet evening on the patio. I realized that setting firm boundaries does not destroy a family, but rather reveals who truly respects your worth. My house was finally a sanctuary again, filled with the deep peace that comes from refusing to live in silence.